Today I'm going to unbox and set up this Netgear N900 Video and Gaming 4-port Wi-Fi adapter. This is essentially a wireless Ethernet bridge for your wired Ethernet devices that don't have any kind of Wi-Fi built in. For instance, you might have a desktop computer that doesn't have built-in wireless, but it's got an Ethernet port. You can hook it up to that and connect it to its wireless network. If you got a home theater set up with Blu-ray players or DVRs that also don't have Wi-Fi but do have some kind of Ethernet port for internet connectivity, you can have one of these with your home theater set up, and that'll connect all your devices up to your wireless network. So we're going to unbox it here. While I'm going through it, it does support 2.4 and 5 gigahertz wireless networks, so it is dual band if you want to have flexibility in which frequency you want to use. Getting all the box out here. There's 4 10100 megabit Ethernet ports, so you got up to 4 devices you can connect to it. This is our little quick start guide. Inside here is our actual N900 unit itself. There's the front of it. There's your WPS connection button. So if you got a secure network and you've got WPS support on your router, you can just use that and quickly link up the N900 with your router and not have to set it up too much on the computer. There's your antennas, and all our Ethernet ports are back behind that. Now we get a standard Category 5 Ethernet cable with it. And this is a stand for it if you don't choose to put it on a wall or lay it flat. You can lay it on its side using the stand there. And the very last thing is our AC adapter to power it. Let me go back and take the wrapping off of this here. And you can stick it on a wall. There's your mounting holes for it right there. The antennas are pre-installed. Let me twist those up. There you go. And again, as I say, there's our 4 Ethernet ports to hook your devices into, where your AC adapter goes, and then you've got a dedicated on-off switch right there. So that is the Netgear N900 adapter. I'm going to go ahead and get this set up with some of the devices I want to use it on. So I've got my Netgear N900 hooked up here and placed on its stand next to the laser printer. I got the antennas pointed perpendicular to each other, and I've got my 3 devices hooked up, the computer and the 2 printers to it. And it's already set up to my 5 gigahertz wireless network, and it's been working pretty good so far. Now before we transfer over to the computer and show the configuration panel and whatnot for this, you can set this up without the use of a computer. When it's first plugged in, the light down here will flash screen. Now this light displays stuff like your signal strength and conditions of the unit. I'll explain those a little later, but right now, this will flash green when you first plug it in, followed by a blue flashing light on the WPS button. That means the device is looking for a WPS capable router, and it'll connect to that. Now most routers nowadays you buy have WPS support built on them. They'll have a little button that looks just like this one here. And you go over to your router, push that WPS button, and this N900 will connect up to that, and they'll set everything up and you won't have to do anything. It'll be ready to use right after. So it's pretty easy to set up for something like a home theater system, or if you're just setting it up for a game console or whatnot. But let's transfer over to the computer now and look at how to set this up on a computer. So I'm on the computer now, and I've got Firefox open, and we're going to go ahead and show how the configuration of that N900 works. The first thing you do is, whenever you start up the internet browser on your computer with it connected, it'll automatically go to the router's configuration page. Now, if you're setting this up on a laptop or a desktop that has Wi-Fi built in, make sure you turn that off first, because you don't want to try to access your home's Wi-Fi through your computer's own Wi-Fi adapter. You want to try to access it through the N900, so it will try to configure it. So make sure your computer's Wi-Fi is turned off while you're working on your N900. So you open up the browser, and I've already set mine up, so I'm not going to show that whole process, but it will automatically walk you through it the first time you launch your internet browser. So what we're going to do is show the configuration of it when you've got it on your computer. I've pasted an address here. This is the address you go to. It'll look very similar when you first start to configure your N900 when you first connect it to your computer. mywifi ext.net/index.htm. That'll take you to the router's configuration. So we'll hit enter, and it'll ask you for your username and password to access the configuration settings of the adapter. Your username is simply admin, like that, and the password is simply password. Okay. Now we don't need it. Now the first thing that'll happen after you've got your adapter configured and it connects to the internet through your router is it's going to try to do a firmware update, and chances are it's going to need it. And this one here has the latest version as of right now, so these are the latest version numbers if you're looking for that, but more than likely it's going to have to do a firmware update, and it's going to do it twice. You're going to have a firmware update to update the firmware for operating it, and then you've got this graphical user interface firmware that it has to update after that, which is basically what we're looking at here, the graphical user interface for configuring the adapter. So here I've got my configuration of it right now. You can see I'm connected up to my 5 GHz network on my Netgear router downstairs. There's my link rate, then my security type, and of course a whole bunch of other factors on here. So when we get into this menu, we can go into the setup again. The setup wizard is again what you're going to see at the beginning when you first look it up, and it's very easy to follow. And you have an IP address setup, so I can set up different IP addresses for this if I choose. There's maintenance options like the device status, which we just looked at. I can see what network devices are on the Wi-Fi network right now, both the local ones that are plugged into the Ethernet and ones that are on Wi-Fi, so you can kind of see the device that I have here. This is the computer we're looking at right now, and then here's the laser printer, and here's the HP inkjet printer that's connected to it. And we can go and back up the settings, we can set the passwords again. We can do a firmware update there if we choose. And last but not least is simply wireless settings if you need to adjust any of that. So if you connect this up to a computer, you can do a lot more in terms of configuring it and getting some data or feedback from what devices it's seeing. But you can just simply hook it up like I showed earlier using the Wi-Fi protected setup button between that and your router. So again, that is the Netgear N900. It's also again here known as the WNCE4004.